get started, let's convene the Little Rock Planning Commission for November 1st, 2018, day after Halloween. And let's take roll.
Chairman Berry.
Here.
Vice Chair LaTour.
Here.
Commissioner Bynum.
Here.
Commissioner Cox.
Here.
Commissioner Finney.
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Haynes.
Here.
Mr. Leahy.
Here.
Commissioner May.
Here.
Commissioner Stebbins.
Here.
And Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
All present.
Great. Fantastic. All 11. Do I hear a motion about the minutes for September 20th?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes of September 20th.
I second.
Got a motion, and it's been approved for the minutes for September 20th. Those approved signify by raising your hand. Those who do not, okay, minutes approved. If you don't mind, do the presentation of the consent agenda. Our screens just went off.
Consent agenda for Little Rock Planning Commission subdivision agenda November 1st, 2018 consists of the following items. We have 3 items on consent withdrawal. Item C, File Z 3501B, Icon Homes, short form PDR, located on the north side of West Markham in the 8000 block of West Markham. On October 11th, 2018, the applicant requested withdrawal of this item. Staff recommends approval of the withdrawal request without prejudice. Item 6, File Z 3451-C, Bennett Davis Group, short form PCD, located at 1300 North Shackelford Road. On October 25th, 2018, the applicant requested withdrawal of this item. Staff recommends approval of the withdrawal request without prejudice. Item 10, File Z 8814-A, Nichols and Dimes revised short form PDR, located in the 1700 block of Wilson Road. On October 16th, 2018, the applicant requested withdrawal of this item. Staff recommends approval of the withdrawal request without prejudice. There are several items on consent for deferral. All of these are for deferral to the December 13th, 2018 meeting. First is item A, File S 1825, Simpson Addition preliminary plat located east of Milburn Lane and Dover Street in the Granite Mountain area. On October 18th, 2018, the applicant requested deferral of this item to allow for more time to address issues raised by staff. Staff supports the deferral request and recommends deferral to the December 13th, 2018 agenda. Item B, File Z 7463-C, Lot 4, Commerce Square Addition conditional use permit, located on the north side of West 65th Street in the 6100 block. The applicants put the incorrect date on the notices. Staff recommends deferring the item to the December 13th, 2018 hearing to allow for resending of the notices. Item D, File Z 8286B, 13500 Vimy Ridge Road, short form PCD, located in the 13500 block of Vimy Ridge Road. The applicant failed to send notice of this November 1st hearing date. Staff recommends deferral of the item to December 13th, 2018. Item E, File Z 9352, 4616 Asher Avenue, short form PCD, located at 4616 Asher Avenue. The applicant failed to send notice of this November 1st hearing date. Staff recommends deferral of the item to December 13th, 2018. Item 2, File S 1424-I, Sienna Lake, revised preliminary plat located on Benham Lane, just south of Marchwood Lane. The applicant failed to respond in a timely manner to issues raised at Subdivision Committee. Staff recommends deferral of the item to the December 13th, 2018 agenda. And item 7, File Z 4470-L, Lot 3, Chenal Park Center, short form PCD, located at 15112 Chenal Parkway. The applicant submitted a request dated October 10th, 2018, requesting deferral of this item to the December 13th, 2018 public hearing. The deferral request is to allow the applicant adequate time to develop a site plan for the rear two lots. Staff recommends approval of the deferral request. The following items are on consent approval. The first is item 1, file S 724-B, lot 4A RR Old Forge subdivision replat located at 10,000 Rodney Parham Road. Staff recommends approval of the request subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Staff recommends approval of the requested variance from section 31-210 to allow the driveway on Old Forge as proposed. Item 4, file S 1828, Lanehart McPherson preliminary plat located on the northeast corner of Lanehart Road and McPherson Road. The applicant submitted revisions and responses to address the outstanding staff issues. Staff recommends approval of the proposed preliminary plat subject to compliance with the following conditions. The first being compliance with the staff comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Compliance with the following additional conditions from Public Works. The first being the proposed sketch grading and drainage plan is approved conceptually. More definite plans and calculations will be provided with the construction plans prior to the installation of any stormwater drainage infrastructure. Vehicle parking will be restricted from the interior side of the center block. This note must be placed on the plat. An access ramp is proposed by the applicant to be constructed on the west side of McPherson Road at the McPherson Road Street 1 intersection. And a franchise permit is required to be obtained for the United States Postal Service box units to be placed in the public right-of-way. Plans for the box units must be approved by staff prior to installation. Staff recommends approval of the following variances for this plat. A variance from section 31-232E to allow proposed lot 1 to have a width less than 75 feet. A variance from section 31-256 to allow lot 1 to have a street side building line of less than 25 feet on the McPherson Road perimeter. A variance from section 36-254 to allow lots 1 through 13, 18 through 20, 23, 24, 26, 27, 34, 36, 41, and 43 to have a width of less than 60 feet. A variance from the land alteration ordinance to allow advanced grading of the lots with construction of the street and drainage infrastructure. Also on consent approval is item 5, file Z 1538-Q, Gateway Apartments, subdivision site plan review located in the 11500 block of Bass Pro Parkway. Staff recommends approval of the request subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the staff and the staff analysis as outlined in the staff agenda. And Mr. Chairman, do we have any cards on item 8?
No, we do not.
Staff recommends that item 8 be placed on consent agenda. Item 8, file Z 5649-G, Timmons Conference Center, long form PCD located at 10915 Stagecoach Road. Staff recommends approval of the request subject to compliance with the staff comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F and the staff analysis in the agenda staff report. And staff recommends approval of a variance from section 31-210 to allow the driveways on Stagecoach Road as proposed. Item 9, file Z 6323-Y, Lot 6, the Village at Rawling Road, short form PCD, located on the southeast corner of Chenal Parkway and Rawling Circle. Staff recommends approval of the request subject to compliance with all staff comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F and the staff analysis in the agenda staff report. Staff recommends approval of the requested parking variance, and staff recommends approval of the requested variance from section 31-210 to allow the driveway as proposed. Item 11, file Z 9208-A, 1417 Kavanaugh Boulevard, revised short form PDR, located at 1417 Kavanaugh Boulevard. Staff recommends approval of the request subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. And item 12, file Z 9363, new water system short form PDO, located at 7915 Highway 300. Staff recommends approval of the request subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F and the staff analysis in the agenda staff report. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you for that reading of the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda with all comments and conditions and variance waivers therein.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that's been seconded to approve the consent agenda as read into the record. Those approve, raise your hand. Those who do not, good deal. So if you are on the applicant, you are on the consent agenda, you are certainly excused and welcome to go out into the traffic, which is awaiting you. Sorry to say. I do want to recognize we do have City Director B.J. Warg here tonight. Always welcome to see our directors. Okay. Ready for the reading of item F?
Go ahead and go. Item F.
Item F, if there's anyone that needs to recuse on that, Commissioner Leahy, I hear tell you do, and thank you. Smoke them if you got them. Please continue.
Okay. Item F, file Z 2481-D, Geyer Springs Business Center, revised short form PCD, located behind 7315 Geyer Springs Road. This is an item that the Commission heard and discussed on September 20th, and at that time the item failed. Sorry, it wasn't on September 20th, was it? It was August 9th. No, take that back. It was the 20th. The Commission subsequently then voted to rehear the item, to reconsider the item, so it is back before you. The application before you is to revise the previously approved PCD to allow the development of the site with a mixed-use development. The applicant is indicating a single building will be placed on the property, mixed-use building containing retail and an event center. To staff's knowledge, there's been no change in the application from when the Commission reviewed it last. Staff continues to have concerns with the proposal, specifically the event center, due to proximity to single-family residential, which is located directly behind the property. And as such, staff is recommending denial of the application.
Thank you. The applicant's here with their agent. If you'd like to state your name and have a few minutes if you want to make a presentation. I don't have any cards in opposition. I have some in favor, I believe. So,
I'm Jason with Half Plus Marler. This is David Gutierrez, the owner of the property. There is actually, if you look at the board, there's, instead of having 4 retail spots, it's only 3 retail spots. That did change, but it was the same change as last time. I mean, it was on last time. Other than that, nothing's changed. The client has met with the neighbors, has got no opposition, has even got a signed document from neighbors, in favor of the item. So I'm gonna let him speak.
Send that over there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go to the lectern if you'd like to say something.
The first and fifth signatures on there are actually the immediate house to the east, and most of the ones on the first page are all from the trailer park that's next to the lot. So we spoke to most of the neighbors. Most of them are for it. That the ones that we talked to are all for it. Like I said, enthusiastically.
Okay.
You know.
Okay, thank you. I got a couple of cards on this item. Miguel Lopez?
Good afternoon. Like you said, my name is Miguel Lopez. I've known the Gutierrez family for 15 plus years. I think the main concern from the staff is the neighborhoods around that area. Being a Hispanic American and being from that area, I know full well that the community wants something like that. The majority of the community that lives in that area lives in either a trailer park or apartment complex. So when it's time to have a baptism, a quinceañera, they really don't have a place to host it. So that's why they're so enthusiastic, because now for the first time in a long time they'll have somewhere close, convenient, and owned by members of the community, so where they can have that. And what's really interesting about them is you've got them that are the entrepreneurs. They also have a Mexican store and bakery, which is famous throughout all Central Arkansas. I know friends from Sherwood, they drive all the way to get the delicious bread that they make. So they're not going to, I know there's a lot of questions as it relates to an event center. People think that, that they cause for trouble, but I can assure you, just given the community, they don't want to, ruin the environment that they've built for the past 15 plus years with their store there. It's going to help the community, but also it's going to be a place for entrepreneurial, right? The Hispanic community in Southwest Little Rock is very entrepreneurial, and they're going to build 3 new lots for potential new businesses, which is good for the area. It's good for Southwest, and I hope that you can vote in favor of it, because it's something that the community needs and wants, and I think it's good as it relates to economic development going forward. The last thing they want to do is mess up the area that is their bread and butter, that Mexican store and bakery that's been giving them so much. And if anything, I remember I've been living here long enough to know when they first started building that store that wasn't the most attractive lot in Southwest Little Rock. And now they've got a store, a bakery. They own the adjacent lot right there, and they've got another delicious Mexican restaurant. They've got the Midas touch. Anything they touch turns to gold. And right now you've got an empty vacant lot that isn't really contributing much. But if they can turn it into a place for families to host their quinceañeras, their baptisms, and for small businesses to not only grow but thrive, that's what is part of the American dream, and we're seeing it right here with these fine gentlemen. So I would encourage you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Lopez. Brisa Veld?
Good afternoon. I, as a member of the Southwest Little Rock community, feel this would greatly benefit us in a positive way. It is nearly impossible for the surrounding lots and apartments, like he said, to host our parties and gatherings due to the lack of space. And it would also, the convenient location would avoid the 20-mile drive to find a venue to hold our gatherings.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Veld. Applicant, any other comments before we discuss?
I'd just like to address the hours of the business. One of the reasons that we asked for 1 o'clock is actually for us to be able to set 12 o'clock as the closing time, but have that 1 hour buffer, to clear out everyone and just play it safe. As far as safety goes, like I said last time, we plan to have police, security, whether the event's private or public. And also, we're going to sprinkle the building. We're going to install sprinklers, as the fire marshal asked us, and we've checked with him as far as the safety goes. And, we're ready to comply. Our intention is to make something that's family-friendly and something positive, something nice for the community. It's, like they said, we're not gonna hurt what we've already made. We're doing it for the long run. Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioners, now time for questions, observation, comments. Any commissioners? There being none, a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of this item in conjunction with the staff recommendation. I'm sorry.
Accept that.
I move for approval of this item with the exception of the staff recommendation, accepting the staff recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. You have a motion to approve the application, accept that for staff recommendation. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
Okay. So we have the motion that will approve the application. Those approve of the application, raise your hand. Those who do not? Okay. 10-0.
Thank you.
There you go. All right. Before we get to the next item, we can call Commissioner Leahy back in from his exile. Thank you. Before we start reading the item coming up, number 3, just want to remind the applicant and those in opposition that we reserve 20 minutes for each side to speak their case. So we don't have a Sean Hannity food fight. If I don't have a card for you, I'm not going to call on you. And that's just only to respect everyone else that is speaking. And I believe I have all the cards. I know some folks were stuck in traffic. While he's reading, if you want to fill out a card and give it to me, that would be lovely. Okay. Well, why don't we go through the cards, and then we'll get to that point. If he's not here, then we'll just have to play that by ear. Yes, go ahead and do that. So anyhow, with that, staff, could you read the item, please? Oh, yeah, Commissioner's back. Anything I missed?
Item 3, File S, 1827, merger on court preliminary plat located in the 8,000 block of West Markham Street. The applicant is proposing preliminary plat approval to allow the development of 2.15 acres with 12 lots of zero lot line single-family homes and 2 tracts. The subdivision ordinance defines a zero lot line development as a residential development concept eliminating the normal side yard requirement on one side of a lot and providing for more usable open space for the other side yard. Per the ordinance, final plans involving this concept are to reflect a buildable area on each lot so as to provide for proper placement of the units and to assure that no lot is to be adversely affected by placement of adjoining units. The zoning ordinance states for purposes of zero lot line lots, the minimum lot width may be reduced to not less than 35 feet and the lot area not less than 4,000 square feet. The applicant is proposing to develop the lots with an average lot width of 42 feet, an average lot area of 4,830 square feet. Front and rear setbacks are indicated at 25 feet, and each lot will have one 5-foot side yard. A private street is proposed for entering the development off of West Markham Street. The plan indicates a 40-foot access and utility easement with a 26-foot pavement width. A minimum of 350 feet of site distance is planned east of the entry drive on West Markham to provide site distance for turning both east and west on Markham. The applicant notes certification of site distance cannot be provided until the existing embankment is cut back. Staff recommends that proper site distance certification for a full service drive allowing for all turn movements must be provided prior to final approval of the construction plans. If sufficient site distance cannot be provided in accordance with AASHTO guidelines and standards, left turn movements may be prohibited. Section 31-207 states private streets for residential development shall be discouraged. However, private streets may be approved by the Planning Commission. The design standards shall conform to public street standards. Private streets are permissible only in the form of cul-de-sac and short loop streets. and only when it's been determined that these streets can be adequately served by all public service vehicles. The request includes a variance from the land alteration ordinance to allow grading of the lots with installation of the basic infrastructure. The development is to be constructed in one phase. Staff is supportive of the request. The applicant is seeking approval of preliminary plat for a 12-lot, zero-lot line, single-family residential subdivision on 2.15 acres. The proposed density equates to 5.58 units per acre. The adopted land use plan for this site is indicated as residential medium density, which accommodates a broad range of housing types at a density of 6 to 12 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommends approval of the requested preliminary plat subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Staff recommends proper site distance certification for a full service connection to West Markham to allow for all turn movements be provided prior to final approval of the construction plans. If sufficient site distance cannot be provided in accordance with AASHTO guidelines and standards, left turn movements may be prohibited. Staff recommends approval of the variance from the land alteration ordinance to allow grading of the lots with the installation of the basic infrastructure. We did receive numerous emails in opposition to the item and expressing concern, all of those provided to the Planning Commission. Been asked to note for the record, there was a petition, an online petition. The final count was presented to you today with a copy of the petition. A new count is 258 signatures with 90 comments, and like that posted for the record. The other emails also included signatures from parents, staff, and others at the Brady Elementary School located across the street.
Thank you. Could the applicant approach the lectern, please? I think you know the process. We have a number of cards in opposition who wants to speak. Certainly, you can speak for a little while and reserve the rest of your time to address concerns.
Good evening, Mr. Commissioner, commission members. Appreciate the opportunity coming before you this evening. As stated, this is a single-family 12-lot development, and while we have met with the residents within 200 feet on two separate occasions to make sure we inform them, we want to be respectful tonight. So what we're going to do, we're going to reserve our time, allow them to express any new comments, and they will come back with our comments. Thank you.
Okay. I do have some cards in support of the application, and I'll go through those first. Robin Miller? No?
We're reserving until the opposition.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Now, I have 8 cards. Keep in mind, you have 20 minutes. You may want to have a designated speaker. Otherwise, I'll just go through in the order of the cards in which I have them in hand. So if no one gives me an indication of who's going to take the lead. Lee Beverly? Okay. Come on up. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here on behalf of some of the local residents surrounding the proposed development. I was asked to look at any potential drainage and flooding issues that this project might either cause or make worse. I don't particularly have an opinion one way or the other on the project, but I have looked at some of the drainage and flooding issues, and I have a short presentation that I put together on that. This is what you'll see on the left side of this slide is the drainage basin that the development is located in. It's about .57 square miles. It extends up to Cantrell Road down. I drew the boundary of it there at the Markham culvert, which is right adjacent to the development. And you can see the development on the left shown in red. It is also shown on the Little Rock floodplain map on the right. And on the right, you can see I've penciled in the little creek, the little green creek that flows by the side and down to Rock Creek. And you can see the floodplain indicated on the right illustration down around Rock Creek. The purple and blue areas are the 1% or 100-year floodplain. The thing that struck me about this in looking at it was that there is no floodplain designation along that creek. And so I looked at some similar creeks just to see what, if in fact the floodplain was designated, what it would look like. It's clear that there is flooding in this area because the residents have talked about it. Now what I did was I took a very similar drainage area, and this is located in the Pleasant Valley neighborhood, and I tried as much as I could to approximate the same square mileage of the same type of drainage. And this is right off of Rodney Pyram over in Pleasant Valley. It's almost identical in drainage area and rainfall to the Merger Court area. And you can see on the right, the Little Rock flood map is fairly, there's a fairly significant floodplain in that area, all due to approximately the same drainage from the same area as the Merger Court. This one significant difference in Pleasant Valley is that they did, in fact, allow for a flood plain in that neighborhood. You'll see there's very little development along that creek. This neighborhood was developed after the Leawood neighborhood. The Leawood neighborhood, you'll see development right up to the very edge of the creek. There are some houses shown on the right which are in the floodplain, but in general, they've left a green space in the area where the floodplain exists. Going back to our site, if in fact the floodplain had been mapped all along that green line, you would see a very similar pattern. The 100-year floodplain would be shown, and it would include a lot more property than is currently shown in the 100-year floodplain. This is the site itself. On the right, you see the existing condition, and you can see the contour lines on the left. You can see the existing condition. You can see the contour lines on the left, and you can see that the site slopes gradually from Wingate Drive down to the site and then on down to the apartments on the left side of the picture. The site itself is very flat. In fact, there's no significant drainage features on that site. All the water which passes from the developments to the right of the site, those backyards on Wingate, drain into this area. It's all absorbed. It doesn't run off from what I could tell. It's a pretty good absorbent of the rainfall as it stands now. To the right, you will see the development, and I've outlined in red all of the paved and roofed areas that are proposed for the development. There's approximately 47,000 square feet. And from what I can tell, a lot of this paved area will go straight to the creek. Next slide. Obviously, increased runoff will increase downstream flooding. However, you can mitigate that flooding by analyzing the site and providing stormwater detention per the city stormwater design manual. we have not at this time seen a analysis for the stormwater management and drainage. And next slide. In fact, what we notice on the existing proposal is that there is a straight pipe which runs from the development, from the paved area of the development directly into the creek. There's no possibility of detaining water, at least not by the information given on the plans. In fact, you could assume that most of the drainage from the entire right side of that site, including all of the roofed areas on the right side of the site, will also end up in that street and end up in the creek. So, in summary, I had to tell the folks that asked me to look at this, but I can't really tell what the implications are for the drainage. I don't have enough information. In reading the city ordinances, I believe that information is supposed to be submitted with the preliminary plat for approval. And so I would think that this information should be developed before this approval. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I don't know if there's any order now for these cards. I'll go ahead and read them as I see them. What's that?
I'm Catherine Johnson.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Catherine Johnson. Keep in mind, 20 minutes
Yes,
is...
I will watch the clock.
Okay.
First of all, I have a big fear of public speaking, so here we go.
Pull your mic down a little bit.
I am short also. First, I'd like to point out how widespread the opposition is to this. We have residents of several neighborhoods, including Wingate, Kalen Hills, Leawood, Briarwood, Plaza Heights, and University Park that have been working together. Additionally, the Kalen Wingate Trust and the Briarwood Area Neighborhood Association are officially opposed, having taken votes. Let me take this minute to see. I'd like to ask everybody here who's opposed to stand so we can see how many people here are opposed. And I think you guys know how hard it is to get people out at 4 o'clock on a Thursday. Probably many of you are familiar with this property. This isn't our first time here. I'm going to just hit some highlights. You have all the bullet points that I'm reading from, so I don't want to bore you. And our time is short. I'm going to let Robert Cortness speak here in a little bit. As Mr. Beverly spoke to, this area is a basin. 450 acres drain into this basin. The city acknowledges it's a large amount of wastewater that passes through this area. It's an unusually large amount of water. The lot to be developed is currently all forested green space. Most of that's going to be gone when this goes in. And as Mr. Beverly said, this acts as a sponge. There's so much water flowing through this property that there's a silt buildup that's happening at an accelerated rate. The city has said that they're going to have to dredge that creek back there at least yearly. A normal dredging schedule would be every 3 to 4 years. So that's a lot of water coming through there. We have submitted a capital improvements request to deal with this, but of course that's going to be years away. As far as I know, the city has not said how they would plan to access the creek for dredging or for capital improvements if this goes in. I'm not saying they couldn't do it, but we haven't seen a plan. Mr. Beverly already spoke to the Corps of Engineers floodplain studies. There's a lot of people that already experience flooding. And some of these stories, this is people along the creek. These are people adjacent to this property and also people just other places along this creek. I have video taken from my property. I don't know if that's available. That would be the one that says Catherine Johnson. Now, this is not during anything I would call a flooding event. This is a normal rainstorm. This is the creek that runs behind my house. This is taken from my deck. You can see that my backyard has a lot of water in it. There's that creek. Normally, I can't even see that creek from my deck because it's much lower, and it's hard to tell from this video, but that's extremely high, and it's going fast. And this happens a lot. I have video from my next door neighbor's yard, Byron Taylor, who is also here this evening. This is his yard. That shed there used to be located on the other side of his yard. And it floated all the way across his yard and came to rest against my fence during an event a year ago. And if my fence hadn't been there, I feel certain it would be on the other side of my yard. We have another video that was taken yesterday. This is at the end of Patricia Lane, another area that's affected by flooding. Yesterday. This was just during yesterday's rain. Again, not trying to show that property's flooding, but just there's a lot of water in this area. So, obviously concerns about flooding. We have a lot of traffic and safety concerns as well. You can see there's a lot of opposition from Brady Elementary, from the teachers and the parents there. When I have spoken to the people there, they are passionately opposed to this. They are very concerned about the safety of the kids there. You can hear it in their voices, and I'm sorry they can't be here tonight to speak. There's other things going on in the school district right now, so there were people that were planning to be here, but they couldn't be here. I would like to also say that I am opposed to a private street on this property. As pointed out, the city ordinance says private streets shall be discouraged and must be approved by the Planning Commission. This is an unusual property. It's got unusual topography. It's got unusual drainage issues. It's in a weird place between two busy intersections across from a school where children are walking and crossing the street. I feel like the city should have more of a stake in this property by having a public street there. When it's a private drive, it's not their problem. I'm going to wrap it up there because we only have about 7.5 minutes left, and I want to save some time for other people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Robert Cortez.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I had to sprint here. There's apparently a wreck on Interstate 630, so I apologize for my lateness. I don't know what has already been said. I'm going to try not to be redundant, but I am also a property owner of this area. The Caitlin Wingate Hills Trust is directly above the northern boundaries of this proposed development. And that trust was formed in order to keep the development safe, to keep development proper under the ordinances as they're contained in the Little Rock City ordinances, and to make certain that the existing neighborhoods that are surrounding this proposed development stay within their historical nature, and that we don't disturb what is becoming a very, I believe, vital part of the city of Little Rock. I did live in the Wingate subdivision for approximately 11 years, raised 3 kids there. So I have a vested interest in this subdivision, along with the Caitlin Hills area, the Briarwood area. I believe that the development that as proposed will be detrimental to all the neighborhoods associated with this development, not just for the lack of compliance with the ordinances, but for the fact that it is not a good idea. I mean, that's simply put, it's not a good development for this area. As a lifelong resident of Little Rock, I believe that it's incumbent upon us as citizens and for developers to comply with ordinances and to comply with what's written under the Little Rock City Code. I believe that most of you may have the letter that I sent, and I just want you to know that wasn't sent as a lawyer letter. That was sent as a person genuinely concerned with this development and the detrimental effect this development would have on the neighborhoods, have on the safety, have on traffic, drainage considerations as voiced here by people a lot more knowledgeable than I am on engineering issues. But it's just not the right development for this section of Little Rock at this time. The analogy that comes to my mind is that what we're looking at here is we're putting a cart before the horse on these, allowing this development to occur as it exists. It's my understanding that the developer did recently revise his plans as of Tuesday to attempt to deal with some of the failures or non-compliance with the ordinances as written. And I'm not going to go over the ordinances that we previously already cited in my letter, but it is clear that this property is flood prone. It does say in the ordinances that there shall be an engineering analysis when there is a property that is flood prone or surrounding area that is flood prone. It doesn't say may, doesn't say won't, or possibly it says shall. I believe that's under 3189.5 and also under 31902 for the engineering analysis requirement and for the drainage issues. And there's an entire section for stormwater drainage and for stormwater detention that's contained in Chapter 29 that these ordinances also relate back to. And I don't believe that this development has done any type of analysis to determine whether this is a feasible project or whether it's just going to be a destructive project. So with that in mind, I know that we've only got about 4 minutes left. And in addition to these concerns, the Brady School PTA has given, I believe, has not been submitted to PTA, the PTA recommendations, the concerns they have for their students. There have been documented incidents of traffic accidents at this intersection. We did an FOI request, was not able to get the list, but I know for a fact that in the last month there have been 3 documented accidents at that exact location for that entrance to that property. It's not a good idea. And, we're not opposed to any development and to all development, but it needs to be proper development. It needs to be analyzed and it needs to be done before we start destroying green space and destroying trees and destroying, what could be a possible development that would be acceptable under the ordinances and under the city's guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you for comments. We have a few more cards left. Keep in mind the amount of time left, and if you've heard it said already, then try to, say something. It's not repetitive.
Reserve the rest of our time.
No, we need to go through these cards.
Okay,
And
I had been told ahead of time that if we wanted to reserve a little time to clear anything up after Mr.
no,
Chairman. we could do that.
that's a protocol. The applicant has that because they're making the application.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Patricia Hillis.
I'll defer my time.
Okay. I have Elizabeth Garland.
I'll defer.
Okay. Brett Scarta.
I'll defer my time.
Okay. Lee Ellen Carroll.
I'll defer mine.
Okay. Wilma, Robert? Wilson Robert? Mr. Robert? Do you want to speak? Okay. Byron Taylor. Byron Taylor. Yeah. All right.
Look at this map right here.
Please just approach the lectern, please.
My house is right off the top left corner there. So that pipe that you saw that will come off of that circle will be into the creek right at my backyard, which you also just saw flooding. And that was a small flood. That's what I got last night. That's how much water was in my yard last night with this rain. Like Catherine said, that shed is now called the Ark because it's floated. It's picked up and floated twice now. My chain link fence has been laid down by the force of the water. And this is without any extra water. And the city's dredged 3-4 times since I've lived there, which has been like 14 years now. And it's overwhelming. I can't use half my backyard in wet season. Also, this entrance, just to beat a dead horse, is blind. If you've been there, if you've been across from Brady School, you know that coming out there, you cannot see traffic coming from your left at all. It doesn't matter if there's an embankment, there's a hill, and it's coming off the hill down from Mississippi. So even making a right turn out of there is dangerous. And making turns into it, during school hours, forget it. But the flooding is unconscionable. It's bad already, and this will just make it worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Sure, you have over a minute.
I did fail to mention something that's in the packet, and that is another flooding incident where 2 feet of water filled a carport, and there was one car that was damaged and one car that was completely totaled. Also, as regards the traffic, even if you limit left turns there, people are going to be turning around. Brady already has problems with people going the wrong way in their drive, doing turnarounds there. If you have a left turn, if you have right turn in and out there only, you're going to have people that need to turn around to go the other direction. And the easiest, fastest place for them to go is going to be Brady Elementary. And you can ask the principal, he cannot stop people from going in there the wrong way. And it's caused problems and it's caused accidents. So it's failed to mention those things, wanted to bring those up.
Okay.
And you wanted to say?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. We're going to move to the cards that have been submitted for the application, if that's okay. And Robin Miller, or do you all have an order that you, okay?
Mr. Commissioner, we've got a way we want to go by. First of all, I want to thank the opposition. I know that this is a very passionate topic. We certainly appreciate your comments. What we like to do is go with this order. Grant Cox, he's with the Grunstoll Law Firm. We have Shelley Stein with Caldwell Banker, Robin Miller with Caldwell Banker, Pat McGettrick with McGettrick Engineering, myself, and of course staff comments. We're just going to simply state the facts as they are. Let the commission make their decision. Thank you.
All right. Grant Cox.
I certainly appreciate it, Commissioners. I don't know that I can add much to what has been said or anything else, but what I can say is that this application does seem to at least meet the standards for the submission of the application that's required for the subdivision. And furthermore, I think that you'll hear a lot with regards to the engineer on the project and the discussion with city staff. And there have been numerous discussions with city staff and issues that have been addressed. And I think that you'll also hear that the applicant has been more than willing to take those comments and suggestions and work within his proposal in order to meet those. So with that, I will certainly turn it over to
Shelley.
Shelley.
Good evening, city staff and all the board members of the City Planning Commission. It's with great pleasure that I stand before you this evening to bring a project that I think you will surely be excited about. We typically see urban areas that are aging. We are seeing our Midtown area really having a real nice revitalization, which is really exciting for our community. And Rodney Chandler with Icon Homes, he sees this as an opportunity to bring more people into the area and to also serve a need that is greatly needed. We're finding that, Coldwell Banker RPM Group will be marketing Mergeron Court for sale to this target market, or to 3 target markets: retirees, empty nesters who live in and around the Midtown area, who are not necessarily wanting to have the large yards and the larger homes and the upkeep. But these will be new homes. All the yard maintenance will be taken care of for them. Professionals who are working at our nearby hospitals, who are working downtown and also in the Midtown areas. This concept for patio homes is not new to our community, as you all know. You guys have approved great projects, including Garden Valley, Montague, Longleaf Circle, Janelle Point. 3 of these are very close to Don Roberts Elementary, which I travel every single day with my kids. And there are 942 students that attend Don Roberts, and Brady Elementary has 403. I understand traffic, but we are only looking at 24 cars with these 12 homes. Over a 24-hour period of these 24 cars coming and going, I just don't see that it is going to create a significant impact to the travel on West Markham. We're also finding that new construction for spec and fill communities is in high demand for our city. This brings me to the average cost per foot that Mergeron Court will be priced at 67% higher than the homes that have been sold in the existing areas of Briarwood, Wingate, and Kalen Hills over the last 12 months. This could be a very positive impact for the values of homes in the future for these existing homeowners in these neighborhoods. We will be continuing to command these higher comp prices on a cost per foot based on the old world style charm of these luxury patio homes for single families or single family homes. Some homes will include stone and precast, but they will all have a European flair that meets the neighborhood. The homes will be 2 to 3 bedrooms with 2-car garages and verandas in the back. You can see some of these pictures of the front elevations. I believe we have 5 different elevations for you to see. Just kind of So this is what they will kind of look like. Gives you a good idea. Now let's step inside of what a Mergeron Court patio home looks like. The homes will have a great room, a dining room space, kitchen, a laundry room, and 2 bathrooms. These homes will be trimmed out with quality finishes, including designer lighting, 10-foot ceilings, 6-inch crown molding, hardwood floors, and porcelain tile. The lush zoysia turf and heavy landscaping will attract buyers to this unique gem in Midtown. Not only will neighbors benefit from this development with higher values for their homes in the future, but the city will see significant impact in their tax base. Being conservative, we estimate the annual tax benefit to the city is $2,300 per unit. Annually, this looks like $27,600, and over the course of a decade, over $276,000 to our city. Mergeron Court makes a solid economic sense for our city. In conclusion, Mergeron Court provides the perfect transition between the established neighborhoods of Wingate and Kalen Hills and the multifamily existing just west of the property. This meets the zoning requirements for our city, and we are asking you to vote in favor of Mergeron Court. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Robin Miller, are you on the Pat? Okay, Mr. McGettrick.
I'm Pat McGettrick, and I want to address some of the comments made by the gentleman from the Corps concerning the drainage. As you saw on his drawings, our site composes 2 acres out of over 440 acres, which is less than 0.5%. It's less than 0.5% of the area in question. It is also at the bottom of the drainage area, not at the top, not at anywhere else. The Corps, as he stated, has not chosen to make this a floodplain anywhere up and down that creek. They've redid a study on Little Rock approximately 10 years ago, and even at that time they did not choose to make this a floodplain up through there. The drainage that is going to come off of our site after development is approximately the change between existing conditions and post-development is approximately 8 to 9 CFS, which is insignificant. I mean, it's an insignificant amount of drainage coming off our site, and we do plan on doing detention. We will work with the city as is required with final plans to do detention facilities to negate any difference in the runoff of post-development versus pre-development. We also, that drainage pipe that was shown on there was to show the approximate size that would have to be put in to handle the drainage coming off there. It will be split. The drainage detention areas are shown on both sides of that. That pipe will run into the detention facilities. Then it will go out into the creek. The creek barely touches our property. It's almost insignificant as far as what it's going to do to our property. Our runoff is going to be very insignificant.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, that creek floods. At least it's been shown by the neighbors. But it's not caused by us. It will not be improved by us. It won't be damaged by us. We won't increase the flooding on that creek to any extent. And we will be glad to work with the city for any improvements we need to do on our part. If the creek has to be improved, the ditch, it's really referred to as a ditch, not a creek, then we'll work with the city. But and I'll be glad to answer any questions about it.
Okay. Thank you. We may call you later. Robert Miller? Oh, excuse me. Yeah, Robert Miller. Okay.
Hi, thank you, Commissioners, for letting me speak. One of the things that, when you do a development, I've been with RPM for 30-something years, I stopped counting, but we've done a lot of developments over time. When you start a development, there's a lot of considerations, you guys know that, and this property is zoned R2. This meets that zoning requirement. I understand they're upset about the flooding they currently have. Like Patrick said, this isn't gonna hurt that. It's not gonna cause it to do any more flooding. This property's below where they are, so it's at the basin, like that was mentioned. So the property that's the application is, the zoning is met, development meets that. The city staff has approved it. The emergency access that was listed, he made a change to put in the detention. So he lost a lot. So he gave up a lot in this project to meet the needs that the city wanted for detention. So that's what they're doing on this project. So we went from 13 to 12, correct, to meet that. So he did listen to their concerns. He's made changes. I think that shows a good partner as a developer into this area. Density, we're below density of the requirements. It's 6 to 12. We're at 5.58. We've met the emergency access. Utilities are going to be installed underground, which is an improvement for the area. He's doing extensive landscaping, which is always an improvement for the city. The drainage is taken care of, like Patrick said. I think that checks all the boxes for this development. Any questions for me?
Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chandler, you've got 8 minutes.
I'll be brief. First of all, I want to go back to a meeting we had with the residents. I think it was Katherine Johnson shared something that was very sensitive. She indicated that her father had passed at some time in the past, and she went to the site that I'm proposing to build Merger Run Court on to grieve. And when
It's okay.
well,
Okay.
it was
right.
in a public forum, but nevertheless,
Let's move on.
I said I respect how you feel, so therefore what I'm willing to do is to create a park-like area with a park bench to honor your father's legacy, to show my sensitivity to what you expressed to me.
Okay.
Now, that was stated.
All right.
And I
Let's
only
be
disclose.
respectful, y'all.
I only disclose this because I'm a very sensitive developer. I understand. I heard the comments before and after. We have responded accordingly. We have met with the city on numerous occasions because we want to be a good steward. We are not in this to create havoc. We want to welcome those in the surrounding areas to come and walk in this nice development, walk your dogs, and be a part of a community that's going to add lasting value. And that is very important to me. I want to share with you a quote from a book I just finished reading by Arthur Allen Jacobs called How to Think, a Survival Guide for World of Odds. And I quote, "Thinking is not the decision, but what goes into the decision. It's testing our responses and weighing the available evidence. It's grasping as best you can and with all available and relevant senses what is, and is also speculating as carefully and responsibly as you can about what could become, and knowing when not to go it alone and when you should ask for help." We've asked for help, comments, and feedback. We have responded accordingly. We ask respectfully that this commission approve this project with the recommendations by staff so that others can enjoy a home in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're time for comments, questions, observations, planning commissioners. Yes.
The gentleman from the Corps, is he back there? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, apologize, but I'm sorry, private citizen. I'm sorry. The Leewood subdivision that you mentioned that was built before, this whole area or whatever, you said it's built to the edge of a flood area right now? Is that correct? Are they experiencing a lot of flooding?
Please come to the podium.
Yes. Why don't you speak into the mic, please?
I meant to comment that the Pleasant Valley subdivision, they acknowledged the floodplain, they left green space for the floodplain. That neighborhood was developed after the Leewood subdivision. The Leewood subdivision does not have that green space, and particularly, though I think the problem is even worse down in the subdivision below Rodney Parham, I think it's the Sunnymead subdivision, which is very close to Rock Creek. They have persistent flooding, but anywhere along that creek should rightly be designated as a floodplain, up to and including the area that this development is proposed for. In fact, it's possible that portions of this development could be in the floodplain if that map was developed. If there was a hydraulic analysis done, you might find, in fact, that part of that development is, in fact, in the 100-year floodplain.
Okay, thank you.
That analysis has not been performed.
Okay. A question for staff. Has an engineering analysis been performed and submitted to you?
Mr. Hood?
Public Works is drawing straws there. Sorry, Mr. Hood, could you come to the lectern and enlighten us?
Seems even my colleague Vince had comments on this one tonight. What about this Sheridan ditch here, or creek, or whatever you'd like to call it? When the first flood studies were done, when they did the Rock Creek channelization, probably a lot of you remember that, and some of those early studies were done, Corps of Engineers
made a decision based on certain criteria, the area of the drainage ways, that they would not go map every little tributary going up through this area. And it was a decision that was made then as a matter of policy as much as anything, that that not every little tributary would have a FEMA mapped floodplain. Now, that doesn't mean that some areas may not still experience occasional flooding, but nonetheless, it's a policy matter that not everything was mapped. And certainly, we're all mindful that there is a history of flooding there. There's no doubt. You can go to city records and see there's been calls over the years about yard flooding, fences knocked down. It has been a nuisance to those residents. There's no doubt. It's a creek.
Okay, it's a creek. And to the gentleman, I'm sorry, Mr. Yeah, there's, from my listening to this, there's been 8 subdivisions and 6 neighborhoods and a trust, 40 people present, 258 written oppositions, 90 in summary in opposition against this.
Yes. And while I recognize that there's been some opposition for different reasons, I recognize also a letter that I received from the seller of the property, where she has offered on several occasions to sell the property to the surrounding residents. They have declined. I have a letter from the seller. Shelley, is it in the package? It is in your package. It very much outlines her position. This lady is getting ready to retire. She has tried to sell the property, but in her letter, and I quote, she has stated, the residents have held her hostage in selling her property. Now, that's in the letter. I didn't make this stuff up. So the facts are what they are. Secondly, in your pack is another letter from Scott Hurley, who is the representing realtor of this project on the seller side. He, too, is a developer. He tried to have the property develop into attached. It was fought with resistance by the same residents who told the seller that they want a green space. The reality is, if you want a green space, buy the property. You can't sit back and say, we don't want it, but you want to have your skin in the game. I'm sorry. That's the reality. We live in an economic system. People have a right to purchase and develop property that meets the guidelines. We have met the guidelines. We have been compliant with staff. We have listened to your voice, and the facts are what they are. Excuse my passion, but I'm very passionate as well.
Well, I understand what you're saying, too. I'm a real estate broker as well, but I might be missing something, but it sounds like they just want to live.
They want, I'm sorry?
Just live in their homes.
They want to enjoy a green space. And I get that. But you can't enjoy a green space if you're not willing to purchase it. People have a right to buy property and to develop as long as it meets the conforming guidelines, which we have done that. That's the reality.
Okay, other commissioners? Commissioner May.
Back several years ago, probably 30, there was a study on the bad dams in Arkansas. And in that group was the dam that's associated with Wingate. Said it was critical and how much water would go downstream if that ever broke. Now, I've lived in Leawood 50 years, and to my knowledge, if it was ever repaired, I don't know. But common sense tells me that we have flooding now. I've lived, like I said, I live on a hill in Leawood, thank goodness. But I've seen logs that I couldn't pick up in the middle of Markham before. And common sense just tells me what you do is going to bring more water down on Markham than less. And something about this hostage thing. I've only been on this panel for 5 years. I'm a youngster coming here, several, like the old man here in the middle. He was here when I had hair, I think, but at any rate, we have turned this thing down. We've been on the same length of time 3 or 4 times because it was not a good place to build anything. Now, I don't look at green space. I love it. I like to hunt. I'd like to see it stay there, but that's, the people above it bought an acre of this. We've turned down 21 items, 21 parcels. We turned down 18 parcels. And there's a reason that this hadn't sold. It's not a good place to build a house. And we have a habit in Little Rock, and we had one out on Highway 10. And he said, well, we're only going to add 4% to this. Well, when the glass is full, a drop or two means if your driveway is involved. I have turned this thing down, as I talked to a young lady, I've turned it down however many times it's come up, because we're only going to pick up 12 places in this big city to live. We got kids across the street there, and I defy you to turn left out of there virtually any time, but at 8 o'clock in the morning, and people don't read signs, believe it or not, and they're going to try to turn left. And on 2 o'clock through 30, whenever they let out, we've got a one-lane road there. And if all your people are turning out whenever, it just adds to confusion. I can't in good conscience. I'm sort of like when I get in I'm sorry this is going so long, but I'm in the same position as when I get in an argument with my wife, which I always lose. Mr. Carney's been real nice. When he says it's something we ought to do, I like to follow. But when we have 158 and Lord knows how many that didn't get notified that says, don't do this to my neighborhood, I can't get in good conscience to vote for this as much as I'd like to support the city. So my vote's going to be no, I'm sorry.
Commissioner, may I certainly respect your comments. I appreciate your feedback and your thoughts. The reality is our impact is minimal, and we have conformed with the guidelines, and we're being good stewards. We respectfully disagree, but I respect your comments, and I challenge this commission to support this
Effects
application.
are minimal to you, but it's not to us.
Well, as was stated by the city staff, this is not a creek. It's called Sheridan Ditch. And the reality is water has to flow. And we are compliant here. And simply, we just disagree. But I respect your comments and I appreciate your thoughts. We ask the commission to support this application. Do anybody have comments? If so, I'll take my seat.
So I support the school more than I support your 12 houses.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
We know where you stood. Yeah. Commissioners, other comments, questions? Commissioner
Want me to go?
Leahy, yes.
I'd like to ask the gentleman in the back of the room, and I'm sorry I did not get your name, sir, that come back up. I got a couple of questions for you.
Yes, sir.
What is your expertise in flood work?
I have no expertise in flood work. I am a professional engineer. I am familiar with floodplain development. I don't have significant experience in either subdivision development or drainage and detention.
What's your employment background?
I worked for 35 years with the Corps of Engineers.
Are you retired from those people now?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Leahy, we get to the question,
Yes, sir.
what your question is?
You can sit down now. I'll quit.
Okay.
I got some more questions, but
Well, that's okay.
not of him. I'll stop on him. I didn't work him over.
Okay.
And,
All right. So what other questions did you have, Commissioner Leahy?
The gentleman in the blue shirt, and I think he's an attorney, said what would be the correct development for this property? What he said could do a better job of development. I'd like to know what he's going to develop it as.
Commissioner Leahy, I by no means would think I could do a better job at developing this development, but based upon the development that's before this board and the ordinances that require compliance and the physical conditions of this property, I would just believe it's a bad development. And I'd like to make a comment too about the no skin in the game. There were 20 residents of Wingate and Kalen Hills that bought the acre that sits above the northern borders of this development for that reason. And if there were, and I know it makes no difference as to how you guys may vote, but I just want to make sure that that's.
You answered my question, and thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. You got a question, Mr.
Much as I respect Commissioner May, I guess my 47,000 square feet out of 450 acres to me is minimal. I guess I keep hearing from the citizens over here about the green space. And I kind of agree with the other side, and that is if you want it, buy it. And this lady sitting there going, we'll buy it. She's sitting there nodding her head the whole time, so.
Let's wait on that just a minute, okay?
And my other comment, I guess, goes to what a couple of y'all have said, and it's in every email we get. So I'm not opposed to development, but this is not the right thing for this site. What is?
Leave it alone.
Well, it's up to the chairman.
I'll give you, you have a minute.
I haven't talked to any neighbors who'd be opposed to, I've heard up to 5 homes there. We just don't want to lose the drain. So that is the bottom of the basin, and that is important, and it may not be a big area, but the drain in your sink and your bathtub is not that big an area either. It's just located in an important place. We wanted to buy this lot when we bought the smaller lot. The smaller lot was a compromise. We couldn't afford the larger lot. The price on the larger lot the last time this came up was $125,000. That's a lot of money to raise grassroots in a neighborhood. We were able to raise enough money to buy the other property, which at the time was part of the last development that was proposed. So we actually purchased part of the property proposed to be developed last time. We just couldn't purchase all of it. We've talked about ways that we can purchase that lot. We have an interest in actually purchasing that lot. We would like to do that, but it's just not been something we can afford up to this point. But we've talked about it very seriously. We've had meetings about it. And as far as I know, no one that I know has been contacted by the property owner. I don't know who she reached out to or when she did it. I know one of her relatives is here.
I got it. There's a realtor back here nodding her head, so I'm sure you'll be getting a call. Thank you.
All right, excellent.
All right, thank you.
Look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Anything else, Commissioner Latour? No? I do want to indulge the prerogative of chair to being the last. I had a question for Public Works just briefly. That drainage is going, when we see those videos, is it going south towards Markham?
It's going straight south, and it goes around the apartments. Yep, right where Walter followed it. There he goes, all the way down through there, and behind the houses on Sunnymead.
Gotcha.
And it's soon then to meet up with Rock Creek to the south.
And so, remind me again, the stormwater detention ordinance, when we look at standards for platting and development, they can't add to what the problem's already there. That is correct?
Up to the 25-year storm. There is a limit to it, but yes, they are not supposed to increase flooding in that range up to the 25-year storm.
Okay. Thank you. Before we entertain a motion, Commissioner Latour, I just, as a planning commission, we look at land use regulations and zonings. We also look at the future of city needs. So the way I frame this issue is certainly this is an emotional lodestone for the neighborhood. They've had the space, it's although private, green space in the back, but it's a very challenged property. So what is a reasonable use of private residential property? And it's obviously challenged. The traffic's challenging, but there is a need for infill development in the city. We lose middle housing. Us aging baby boomers with gray hair are not providing housing for our millennials or those that are retirees. So that is part of the consideration. Certainly it's not going to sway those that are thinking otherwise, but I just want to add that as a consideration. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of this item, including all staff comments and conditions as related to the plat.
Okay. And by the way, we'll have to have a second motion on the variance too. So that's a different motion from the plat. Do I hear a second for this motion that has just been made? I'll second. Okay. Motion's been made, second, to approve the application as presented with staff recommendations. Those approve of this application, raise your hand. Do you have a count, staff? Keep your hands raised while we count. Okay. And those opposed to this application, raise your hand. Okay. That part passes. Now we need a motion for the variance to the land alteration for advanced grading.
Mr. Chairman, I move the the approval of the advanced grading portion of this project.
Okay. There has been a motion for variance from the land alteration ordinance for advanced grading. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made second for the variance land alteration. Those approve of the variance, raise your hand. And those opposed? Okay. Okay. The item's clear. This particular preliminary plat is not one that goes before the city board as by ordinance. And with that being said, I am open for citizens' communication. I appreciate everyone coming in the rain and the traffic. The accident on the highway has been bad. So be careful going home. And if I hearing none, we are adjourned.